Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wake Up Missoula. I'm your host, Scott Ramf, here to usher you in. It's the last Friday in June. The month ends on Monday, so we won't even have City Council next week. So, but luckily, it's going to be July 4th, and I'll be able to do the July 4th morning show before I take a hiatus for the month of July while we were doing our summer camps. I'll probably come back and pop in at the end of July just to check in with you guys, but we're going to kind of mostly get into the more summer months. But as you know, we're talking about some of those things. A lot of changes are moving forward, especially with the City of Missoula's own property, the Riverfront Triangle, former home of the Fox Theater. And before that, it was basically the city dump. So without further ado, Mayor Andrea Davis was able to partner up with the folks over at a DoubleTree Hotel and their organization, the Aerial Hospitality Company, to kind of talk about the new development that is going to be popping up, a big new hotels and conference centers. So without further ado, here is Mayor Andrea Davis.
I am so thrilled to be standing here on a site that the city has owned for decades and decades, that we have long wanted to turn into a redevelopment part of our community, to be able to extend downtown, to be able to see this as a vibrant part of our downtown. And we're working with a Montana-based family who has long roots in Montana and here in Missoula. They are bring a rich experience in the hospitality experience, and the fact that the city of Missoula can contribute infrastructure dollars to be able to make this possible will not only make it so this site will come alive, but we are standing on an area where we're going to have an amazing riverfront trail and terrace that is part of this project. You'll hear more about this as we get into the speakers here. And so in just a few short years, this whole riverfront area is going to be part of, as you can imagine, if you can think about just a few blocks to the east right now, the public-private partnerships and investment that has been made in downtown Missoula on Front Street has created an enormously vibrant, active space where small businesses, where people gather, where people come visit, where people have experiences and make connections. That's going to be here.
All right. So that was Andrea Davis talking about the opportunities that this new site's going to provide. Originally, Mayor John Engen, as the pandemic was coming to fruition, wanted to go bigger than just the Riverfront Triangle, otherwise known as the Fox Triangle, which not only encompassed that one section that they kind of had a basic rendering at the end of it. They also want to encompass some of the properties owned by St. Pat's and some private ownerships from across the street to redevelop that whole entire area to be more of a concert venue with the Nick Shakota Company. But like anything, the pandemic, not to mention entertainment, touring went down dramatically during that era. And just a lot of things just didn't come to fruition in the end. And so far, the DoubleTree Hotel folks, with partnerships with Brian Alvarez, with their hospitality company, the total development costs are going to be $100 million, and the money that they're going to generate through this land partnership with the organization is going to net $7 million that are going towards the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, the trust fund that has been utilized through the Centralized Housing Solution through United Way of Missoula as a part of many ways to help fund many of those services and things to help people retain their homes, not to mention build out affordable housing, including organizations like NeighborWorks to help people in mobile parks retain their homes in the long term. So within the next couple of years, that money is going to help generate some more affordable housing. And also, the City of Missoula also announced the new fire chief, Lonnie Rash. Gordy Hughes has been with the department for many years, and it has, and is basically one of his big swan songs is to make sure that the next generation and expansion of the firehouse is moving forward. And so, and Andy Droback, Union President of Local 271, spoke at council about Lonnie Rash being sworn in. So this is what he had to say.
Represent 116 members, many of who are here. And it's not often that you guys see our firefighters here. We only come when it's something important. And this is an important confirmation. The fire chief is a high stakes position. And that's why we're here, because it's important. We want to show support for Chief Rash coming in. I just want to really say thanks to the city for the effort that you all put in, particularly CAO Bickle and Councilwoman Anderson and Mayor Davis. It was a lot of work, I know, finding cream of the crop candidate, and we're very appreciative for that. We believe that Chief Rash is going to provide us with that vision and strategy, credibility and trust, and most importantly, strong leadership. And I think sometimes the importance of leadership is overlooked a little bit in the fire department, and we really need that strong leadership. We think he'll provide that.
All right, and so that was that happening there in the city of Missoula. Just a new fire chief. Good luck to Lonnie Rash. He will see the change within Missoula as the levy and funds towards the new firehouse number 6 will be under his watch, along with the 20 new firefighters Missoula as we grow. Eric Melson, City Council, spoke about the public lands again, and so this is something that he really wants to harken on and want people to know about the new big bill that's also going to include about 3 million acres of Montana land to be sold off to help pay for it. So here is Eric Nelson.
The purpose for this resolution and why it's before us tonight. So the reason why we're seeing this resolution tonight on new business is because right now, as early as Thursday, the United States Senate will be voting on a proposal to sell up to 3.3 million acres of our public land. For reference, that's over 5,000 square miles, roughly the size of Connecticut. That would be sold off to the highest bidder. Our public lands, our forests, our rivers, our grasslands, and our mountaintops. These places are more than just scenery for Missoulians. They're where we learn, where we seek challenge, where we fall in love, where we raise our kids, where we ramble and reflect and find silence and solitude and connect with each other and with the world that we inhabit.
All right. So as of recent news on Thursday, you know, they're still pitching this, they're still being talked about and stuff like that, but the reviewed litigation calls for selling 1.1 million acres of Bureau of Land Management public lands. And so they're still kind of in discussion. There's a lot of things going on right now, but if you are interested in preserving those public lands, call your local representative, House, Senate, whoever you can get in contact that will represent you in the federal government to help protect those lands. Once these lands are gone, they're gone forever. Get used to land owners putting more and more private property keep out signs replacing public land signs if this continues. Melson suggested Outdoor Alliance as a source of information on folks voting to sell public lands. So they have all the contacts for people to call to help forward this movement to help preserve the public lands of Montana, which would basically become a staple for tourism and just blue collar hunting, all that kind of stuff. So for the next 40 minutes, they had public comments from the city and the public supporting this resolution that outlined the importance of public lands as a means to top priority protect Montana values. But of course, as we go deeper into the federal government policy, Medicaid is yet another one of those things that require action from the city of Missoula as they brace for funding cuts and shortfalls. So Mayor Andrea Davis spoke more on this particular resolution to kind of continue this letter that they want to send to the federal government in opposition to many of these provisions in the Big Beautiful Bill.
It has been illustrated through Medicaid expansion and now renewal in the state of Montana, just how important Medicaid and the health of our community is, the health of our citizens. We are remiss to see not only what this would do to our residents here in Missoula, but the entire state of Montana. You've heard this many times over that rural hospitals across the state are ever more reliant on Medicaid, and so are our hospital systems here in the city, because if those hospitals fold in rural communities around Missoula, we will feel the pressure here and we will have a loss of care in our area because there's just greater pressure on the healthcare system here in Missoula.
Yep, and so if rent wasn't hard enough, the medical expenses from not getting coverage from Medicaid is just going to add to the fire. Programs like the mobile support team would have cut if the fire levy wasn't funded, and the partnership with Partnership Health that depends on Medicaid to help offset the cost for their services related to the crisis intervention teams. This resolution is like the previous one in opposition of the federal government to not pass the big beautiful bill that dramatically cuts Medicaid and also uses the sale of federal lands to help pay for this as well. So if anything, this is just how you kill a bill that was established during the Obama era. Repeal and replace failed, but cutting funds is the best way to get rid of something, if not fully. So Assistant Fire Chief John Petroff talks about the shortfalls as a result of these actions from the government. So this is what he had to say.
We had a hard fight at the state level for Medicaid expansion and just continuing the service. We saw a lot of people dropped in the last couple of years off the Medicaid program. And with that, we just see a lot of people struggle, and that's people that are housed, not housed, all the way across the board. And I think if we don't have that federal level of support and we see that go away, the mobile support team program is funded, about a third of it is going to be funded through Medicaid reimbursements. So if we see that go away, our current staffing levels and our current ability to serve the community would probably diminish. It'd be hard to, the mill levy supported about 939,000 of the $939,000 worth of the funding for that program, which is about 1.4 total to run that program.
All right. So there's a kind of a glimpse of what some of the shortfalls might happen as a result. Of course, without Medicaid, it would be harder to staff about 10-hour days, 7 days a week for the mobile support team. And for optics, the fighters and folks on the support team field about 25 calls a day and spend about 1 hour per call on average. Not counting the follow-ups they spend on folks as the core of their services related to the mobile crisis unit. So Nicole Gomez through Catalyst Montana gave comment on this matter as well.
Make no mistake, if these cuts pass, people will lose the health care and food assistance they rely on, which will result in folks in our community going hungry and possibly even dying if they cannot receive the medical care that they need to survive. In other words, these cuts will be devastating to our community and communities all across Montana. Recent reports suggest that over 30,000 Montanans will lose their Medicaid coverage if the House-passed bill is accepted, and 11,000 are at risk of losing their SNAP benefits entirely, and another 22,000 recipients are at risk of having their SNAP benefits reduced. Here in Missoula, these cuts could result in thousands of Missoulians losing access to the care and food they need. That is why we're urging you to take a stand against these cuts with this resolution. City Council can send a clear message in passing this resolution that we do not accept what is going on at the federal level with these cuts.
Yeah, and if you think about it in terms of per capita, that's 3% of the Montana population that would be cut from this as well. So as we get further into the weeds and further into this, Bob Campbell, City Council, basically spoke against this particular resolution for many reasons, just because he believes that there's a lot of talk going around that is not quite the kind of talk that might be true or honest. So he's skeptical of the resolution and the narrative in general.
From the leaders at the DNC, whoever they are, I don't know if they have a leader at this point, but if anyone tell me who that is at this moment, I don't know. But, they have this sky is falling attitude to going after, the hundreds of billions of dollars that have been wasted and abused over the last, several years. There's a Government Accountability Office report from 2024 that found that $100 billion has been discovered in improper payments in 2023 across Medicare and Medicaid programs. And I found another article, this one from March of 2023, estimated annual fraud tops $100 billion, but investigators say it's likely much higher. So anyone want to take a guess where I got that article from?
And even if that is accurate in terms of that, 100 billion isn't the 700 billion that they plan to cut through this big beautiful bill as well. Of course, no one blinks an eye when the Pentagon and military spending gets out of hand. However, fraud exists everywhere. But like any tool under the government, we can use it or lose it. Any way you shake it, Bob Campbell believes that this national narrative the Dems have presented isn't as bad as you think. Stacey Anderson, City Council, spoke about this system as well. This is what she had to say.
You know, what are you supposed to do? You work a job that's 40 hours, but your employer doesn't provide health insurance. You know, my uncle, who has been working as a janitor for 30 plus years, doesn't have health insurance. It took him 10 years of working in this job that pays minimum wage to get a 1 week paid vacation. These are real life, and these are real stories of people that every one of us knows. And so it is not some political left-wing agenda for scare tactics. No, these are people's lives that we're talking about and the effects it has on those people's lives. I am so incredibly thankful that I have health insurance because, as Ms. Jordan pointed out, bankruptcy because of medical debt is a real thing in this country, and it is disgusting that it is a real thing in this country. We spend billions of dollars on all sorts of things, but the most fundamental thing, people's health, that allows them to be productive members of society, to give back in ways of volunteering, to, you know, all the things in which we are all able-bodied and lucky enough to be able to do, you know, comes so much from our ability to, you know, live healthy lives.
All right. So that was Stacey Anderson giving her 2 cents on this matter as well. And, you know, the city council is kind of crazy because, you know, they're getting really into the weeds about the federal government and these kind of things. And these resolutions are just something that the city of Missoula is going to be, have trickle down consequences of many of those federal spending cuts that are going to be used. So the city voted and passed the resolution to basically write a strongly written letter to the government. That, and as we move on to the city, spoke about the Parks and Rec Master Plan, otherwise known as PROST. And I'll spare you the clips, as this is something I've spoken about in length. And Missoula Parks are working hard to work cohesively with city, county zoning to include the importance of green spaces for public parks, to open space, and even something in the middle to help the growth of Missoula. The city passed this and will continue to grow with parks in mind for development. Other than that, the more housing development, looking for a right-of-way easement, essentially taking a low-traffic alleyway and converting it into a private driveway within development for residents. But of course, as we talk about recent Texas ownership of a local trailer park, which resulted in rent hikes, Mike Nugent, during the city council, basically after meeting, talks a little bit more about this reflective practice.
Mobile home parks are the last kind of affordable home ownership opportunity in some parts of our state. Yeah. And I honestly can't, some of the bills that have been in the state legislature, I don't know why people haven't supported them outside of just straight party line nonsense, because the ability for a community to come together and purchase and form some sort of co-op or things like that. We've seen in Missoula, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund help be a part of that. I believe Bonnie's Place was the last one, kind of off the River Road neighborhood, I believe. But I'm not 100% sure what we can do to help those folks. But if what was reported in the Missoulian is accurate, it's disgusting. The current ownership group is telling people to go get Section 8 vouchers, but then they don't accept Section 8 vouchers. It's everything that's wrong with that sort of ownership, and it kind of gives everything else a bad name. So I'm not sure what we can do, but I certainly am willing to try and help be part of that conversation.
All right. So the best thing a lot of times what cities can do is give other options and other benefits to other places for these folks to stay in this trailer park. This is just one of the many things that have been happening in the city of Missoula, is that people have been buying up trailer park land lots and redeveloping them for, even if they are affordable housing, the people that already live in there are kicked out. And then by the time the housing units get built, most of the rent of those particular places are restricted to how much the earner makes. And, you know, far be it from the BlackRocks and Carlyle groups, to name a few, acquiring more and more private properties with little to no intention of letting the market rates match the local area's median income for people to afford to live in Missoula. That's pretty much common across many places, where they're squeezing every single penny that they possibly can from everyone. You should be putting a quarter of your income away in the savings. A quarter of what? People got their homes and are sitting pretty. The rest of Missoula is being priced out of their trailer, mobile park homes, one mobile park at a time. It's always bad when a majority of issues of the nation impact local communities and monopolies this meeting, but Missoula has local issues to work on. But this trickle down beginning to have a dry period in many departments within Missoula have to have hiring freezes across the board as a means to hold tight in this uncertain time. That's how I kind of end that part of the city council meetings as I jump into committee meetings, which happened on Wednesday. Public Safety and Health was updating language on regulation of the state passed additional inspection, testing, and compaction requirements will impact our wastewater treatment and installation of fills or soil. Public Works with Missoula redevelopment agencies up for discussion for the Budget and Finance Committee meetings. MRA, which gets Urban Renewal District money from commercial properties, spoke about the revenue and any additional funds needed. I wasn't able to get any clips, but Public Works, the department that keeps the light on and maintain infrastructure, talks about their budget as well. And MRA will continue to generate revenue through the urban renewal districts up until 2040, to which they raised $28.3 million since 1978 to create 2,500 new housing units, with 900 of them being income qualified affordable housing. Public Works needs to increase the road district fundings by $124,000 to meet the needs of the 7% increase in overall materials for the roads. Other than that, they had a lot of one-time requests for street sweepers, garbage trucks for their fleet, with a good portion of those funds from gas tax distribution by the state. Overall, Public Work also included water utilities, putting the expenditures for Missoula from road, stormwater, water totaling $47,051,766 annually. So there's a lot of money being put into it. And climate conservation also talked about the wastewater utility being one of the biggest contributors to the carbon emissions. So an update from Climate Smart Sustainable team gave an update on everything climate and the city's efforts to curb carbon emissions and to be net zero by 2030 and zero waste by 2050. Annie Geiger, Climate Action Task Force, talks about the implementing their policies through the city planning. So this is some of the stuff they've done in the past and some of the stuff they've done.
We worked together with the task force to create a decision-making matrix that we could really identify and assign numbers to. We looked at things like what are programs and projects and opportunities that are already existing in our community, and what has the most waste diversion potential. We also examined things like political will and cost and capacity and all of these other factors to really kind of drill down to where we thought we could kind of focus on and prioritize strategies.
And one of the big things that came out of a lot of their efforts was the deconstruction phases. So instead of essentially just hauling many of the excess material to the dump, they try to repurpose a lot of the old material when they're demolishing, or AKA deconstructing, which has become a norm for Missoula redevelopment and such. So infrastructure is the focus of many has waste days to specialize hauling toxic materials away from sites that have implemented deconstruction for repurposing old material. Elora from the task force spoke about greenhouse gas emissions for the city of Missoula, and this is what they had to say.
And you'll see a very significant jump from fiscal year 2008 to fiscal year 2020. And so a big note here is that the city did acquire the Missoula water utility in 2017. And so that accounted for approximately 87% of the emissions increase from 2017 to 2020. So a big portion of this increase in emissions is because of that acquisition.
All right, and as that kind of plainly shows is that, it's just, this is how much the city is doing on their parts with their assets to help curb their carbon emissions. Like she showed you, the water and wastewater are one of the largest contributors of greenhouse gases, with improvements to the water utility lowering the carbon emissions greatly over the last couple of years with the water main replacements. The pump stations are working. The energy needed to pump through a leaky system needs a lot more pumpage and a lot more energy just to keep it going. At one point during the trial for eminent domain that the city did use to acquire it, they had a high percentage of leakage. I think it was over 60%. Don't quote me on that, but it was definitely a lot higher for those kinds of things. And we have the aquifer, and the water would just drip down to the aquifer and then be repumped up. So the energy wasted on it would be quite a quite dramatic for sure. Devin, who also is with the group, talks about what they have done to improve the energy efficiency in Missoula, and this is what he had to say.
With our community partners and with statewide partners.
I think, sorry, here's the quote.
To discuss and review any legislation that could be impactful and provide guidance on how our city could weigh into those conversations. A really good example of how the legislature impacts our efforts here in Missoula is that there was a shared solar bill, SB 188, that was passed out of the legislature that would have enabled community solar statewide. That's a really exciting tool. Unfortunately, the governor did veto that. But it's a really good example of how impactful decisions at the state level can be for our local community. And
all right, so yeah, I mean that's kind of how it is that we're still trying to figure out, beyond advocacy work, the climate task force works with many within the city in dealing with impacts of state laws from anti-solar veto that our governor issued against solar power sharing efforts. This is essentially where money would be generated by, like when you have solar panels on your home, you get a credit for that to help offset some of the costs. And a lot of that was being impacted by the legislature as a result. The task force is public, and many organizations are also a part of it, from a large to small, and having constant contacts with Northwestern Energy, which has been working with Missoula for energy efficiency and reducing impacts to the grid in a growing population needing more connections. Housing redevelopment and community programs brings up another attempt by the city members, Daniel Carlino and Christian Jordan, to help offset costs for rentals in the city of Missoula, and non-compete rental practices in Missoula to help renters find affordable housing. This is one of those targeting the AI algorithm. RealPage, which is a part of the United States versus RealPage, is an ongoing suit that the Justice Department has been pursuing for almost a year now, back when they basically started drafting these articles back in August of 2024. And so this AI algorithm that property managements have been using increases rentals by $70 per month over the last couple years, resulting in the $3.8 billion in overall rent hikes across the nation. Christian Jordan, City Council, talks background about this anti-competitive rental practices, and this is what she had to say.
This idea and proposal was brought to me by a constituent who is a renter here in Missoula. Their name is Caspin Black, and they are currently traveling and out of the country right now, so unable to participate in today's conversation. But a little background on this particular idea is that price fixing algorithmic software is widely used by many of America's largest property management companies, including some operating in Montana. The software generates rental prices using non-public, competitive, sensitive data shared among competing landlords who subscribe to the service. By relying on the shared data to set prices through a common pricing model, landlords effectively engage in price coordination, undermining free market competition. Recognizing the harm this practice causes, the United States, along with 8 states, is currently suing the largest of these companies for violating the Sherman Act, the U.S. versus RealPage.
All right, so that's kind of give you the little bit of background in terms of that. As we go further down, Daniel Carlino, City Council, also sponsored the bill, suggested a housing policy to help create burden renters as a vacancy rates increase and rentals remain empty. The cost of living does not match the pace of pay in Missoula for the most basic full-time or part-time jobs in general. So Daniel Carlino reflects on this as well.
As technology advances, it really should be used to uplift the working class and to make sure that people don't have to work so hard to survive. We all need a roof over our head. It's one of the basic needs for people, and the majority of our community is renters, and still today the vast majority of these renters are having a hard time finding affordable housing in Missoula, and it's very slim pickings for affordable housing units that we all need access to. So I think as technology advances, we should make sure that it's not being used against low-income Missoulians or people that are just looking for an affordable housing unit for themselves to rent.
Yeah, many just is trying to figure out the best ways to, keep rents low and all that kind of stuff. And how RealPage AI property management software worked was to help landlords price their home, and it ended up highly encouraging price hikes. I mean, in a capitalistic society on the edge of a very top-heavy economy with very little people controlling the majority of wealth, why would you hire people to make people pay rent when you can use an algorithm to harass tenants into paying and relying on state and local law enforcement to do the dirty work of evicting them? So they open it up for public comment, and Mark Anderlich talks about the experience with the software, and this is what he had to say.
We looked at her rental, and she had put in, we don't use price fixing software or something to that effect. And that immediately sort of enamored us of her, but the place wasn't adequate for us. And I want to support this and maybe suggest that the small mom and pop places maybe use this to advertise that they're not using this price fixing software, kind of work it the other way, more on the positive side of things. Instead of, you can't ban it, but let's maybe encourage, the landlords who want to be subject to the market, which I frankly think is rather broken at this point anyway, but.
Yeah, so that was kind of the reflection of some of the people's own experiences with renting in Missoula. The concept of long-term tenants went out the window as many of these practices were implemented in a post-COVID time where a lot of people kind of went from a yearly lease to more month-to-month. And many automated features that the RealPage and other algorithm software is used to make property management easier on the landlord. So Sean Doherty talks about squeezing the tenants and his public comment. This is what he had to say.
I was talking about the scientific method. I had said, look at the variables. Great, variable, amazing. We found that there is a software that is creating $70 more than the Missoula people need to be spending. I think that this is something that hyper needs to be addressed because it's just going to get worse. This is just going to get worse. The dollar's crashing. A lot of these companies are coming through. Small mom and pop landlords are being able to they can't afford it. They can't handle it anymore. They sell it out. We have a lot more property coming up, a lot more apartments coming up. Previous meetings, we were talking about building more houses, building more apartments. We're trying to build up the Missoula community. If we continually have this problem, it will just get worse. And I think that it is fantastic that you brought up this software because there are so many things like that are happening within the Missoula community that are creating these variables to hyper expand how much we're paying renters. And rent is terrible. It doesn't help my credit score. It doesn't build towards anything. Rent is empty, and it is hurting the renters.
Yep, and if, the thing is about rent is supposed to be a temporary thing, but now it becomes a necessary thing for people to stay there. And, I've been saying this for many, many, many months and many years now in the post-pandemic world is if you were just to shave off $300 a month, you'd pretty much have the homeless population in Missoula. Heck, we have hardworking Missoulians living out of their cars. That's a car living population that didn't exist in a pre-pandemic world. And those prices just kind of got things. You make rent impossible. You get too many vacancies in a failed city, and the sharks start circling and acquire more properties of these small operations. And basically, the price fixing continues with you have a lot of empty buildings where they have no vacancy, where they basically point to this. And at this point, it really feels like Gen X is waiting for their boomer parents to basically die and leave their money just so they can afford their homes. But also, spoiler, boomers will also be milked for their estate just to keep them alive in this dramatically increasing medical costs that most elderlies have to pay. And at some point, will even force their kids and grandkids to help pick up the tab after they're gone. So legacies shouldn't have to put your name on buildings or colleges. They should live through the families and communities that have been enriched by hard work and dedication to personal in engagements. We are at a turning point of our nation, and it's something that we got to really think about in terms of what we're going to do with our social contract as technology improves and automation and less people need to do labor in general. So just something to really think about. But I'm kind of end it right there, and that will wrap up my city council report for you guys. I'm going to actually jump right into my pre-critic segment where I prejudge a movie based on absolutely nothing but my biases towards movies in general. Kicking things off is a Brad Pitt movie called F1. That movie is out and about, and kicking things off, we were watching a movie about Formula One racing, and unlike Indy 500, these racers can turn right. Watch as an aging trope of an aging racer must train the next generation. It's kind of like making a movie Creed, but with Formula One. Much like an older driver had one crash that defined his retirement, so fade to glory, making way for a new kid who also comes from nothing, as he must be the underdog to overcome and create predictable tropes about sports movies. It's kind of like Rocky, it's like Creed, it's like we're watching Little Giants with Rick Moranis and Craig T. Nelson once again, so it's nothing new. Then we got Megan 2.0. They're basically just pulling a Terminator 2. The robot Gen Z movie is back and is pulling their Terminator 2 with their higher stakes and even more uncomfortable silences from a robot girl they had to battle angel their way into our hearts. That's a deep cut right there. Enjoy an unapologetic AI as they update their operating system to bring a cash grab into the form of a random dancing and K-pop fan services into what would become an action movie star with plenty of action. Watch as the robot gal fights against the military robot that took intellectual property from the business that made her, and usually it's the other way around, but watch as we have to infiltrate the worst robot so that the good bad girl robot can girl boss all over the T-1000. Moving on, we got Hot Milk. This is one of those foreign films that you're probably not going to hear about, but this next one goes down like a glass of hot milk. Usually they use this for lattes, but we are here in one of those mistitled drama movies about comedic undertones to lure you in, and then before, bam, Oscar bait nonsense. Enjoy a terminally ill mother as she tries to reconnect with her daughter on her pointless journey to find a cure while on a Spanish vacation. Watch out for water guns over in Spain. Up next, we have a brand new dub and stuff for you guys. It is from the 1961 movie Bloodlust.
How are you doing? I mean, hello there. Welcome to my man cave. I haven't installed the Echo yet, but you get the gist. What's going on? How'd you hide this lair underground? Lair? No, this isn't a lair. This is a man cave. This is all sorts of, manly stuff. See, I can operate all sorts of things with the flick of a switch. Oh my God, is that a guy? It's art. That's what the guy said it was manly art. Okay. Bad example. Let me just explain to you the importance of having a man cave. Do you taxiderm people? No, I buy people. No, not like that, but like already dead people. And, it's like the Bodies Museum in Vegas. If anything, I'm recycling. You'll never get away with this. This is very deranged. Is that like supposed to be Deadman Cave? Art tells a lot of stories, and that person is art. They might be dead, and dead may tell no tales, but let me explain this to you. When I originally thought of this man cave, I had all sorts of fun things on the walls, on all sorts of kinds of things. And then I decided maybe I should make this cave look more like a cave. And then the cave became more cave than man. And then now it's kind of like caveman, which doesn't make any sense because I want a man cave. But yeah, I don't know. Man, I shouldn't be buying things without consulting other people, because the people who are trying to sell me this crap is just convincing me that everything I do is a good idea, and now I'm in the hole for $1.3 million for building this cave. This is stupid. I should just blow everything up. You know what? This stinks. And having a cave underneath a mansion? That's just stupid. Where's the foundation? Like, how are these walls not caving in, or how is the mansion not falling down on the ground? Let me just tell you this. My original intent was to, bring people together. And now... Oh, God! Oh, see, she's even crying about this. All this art, I tried to make it more appealing to women, but no, nobody wanted to see it either. It sucks being rich, too, All this extra income by exploiting the workforce of my forefathers. Ugh. Now, you see here, you have insulted me in my little cave, and now I have to ask politely for you to leave. So, could you leave? This isn't exactly how I wanted this reveal to go, so perhaps you cannot tell anyone about this cave. See, there's the elevator. Please take it. I surround myself with consultants every day, but, this isn't... So perhaps maybe... If we cannot tell the police about the dead bodies, I'd really appreciate it.
back, let's talk about some events that are happening within the city of Missoula. Kicking things off, as always, you guys can check out many of the library events that are happening in and around in the library, of course. We got Tiny Tales happening every Friday at 10:30 a.m. We also have the Missoula Food Bank, which opens at 10 a.m. for folks that are interested in getting those fresh, nutritious food at a cheap price. It is the last of June. May was slow, but June was like, bam, done and done. And while we have so many events last weekend, this weekend might not be all that special. So right now, home resilience workshop at the GW Marks Exploration Center, Climate Smart Missoula, the organization that just had the update, is doing a home upgrade hub and the Office of Emergency Management for an engaging morning all about getting wildfire and heat ready. The event will kick off with coffee, donuts, and brief presentations. Doors open at 8:15. Presentations are already ongoing as we speak. Stroller Strides Mommy and Me workout class at Bonner Park. This is a daily event that happens there starting at 9:30 a.m. We also have those walking tours hosted by Destination Missoula. This is to help people understand, Missoula, and just going to give people those walking tours and basically all the best hot spots to go on. And it's a big tourism thing for sure, but you never know what kind of things that you might find out along the way. And this one next event that is something that is actually pretty interesting for the next 3 weekends, every Friday and Saturday from about 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Carlos's One Night Stand is doing a pop-up at the Burnswick Artist Studios, which is off of the corner of Railroad and Woody Street in downtown Missoula area. So they're going to be selling hundreds of vintage dresses, hundreds of men's vintage shirts and Western pearl snaps and Hawaiian shirts. If you are not familiar with Carlos's One Night Stand, they used to be a costume shop that they would rent costumes off, and a lot of people had a lot of great memories with that. But it seems like they're trying to get rid of a good chunk of their stock, and so they're doing these pop-ups for the next 3 weeks right there. Watercolor and Yarns at noon on the 4th floor of the Missoula Public Library every Friday. Lewis and Clark Days at Lolo Hot Springs. This is an event about honoring the rich history in the area where they're creating space for local stories, indigenous voices, and community connections. They'll have local historians, storytellers, family-friendly activities for all ages. It's meant to be an intimate, welcoming event where people can learn, reflect, and enjoy some of the time in the mountains together. All Abilities Art class at 1 p.m. Every Friday at Base. Predator feeding at 3:30 p.m. at the Missoula Butterfly House. They do this randomly, but they usually have the Butterfly House open at 10 a.m. where they release new butterflies every couple weeks. The Emperor's New Clothes MCT show happening at 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. tonight. These are the shows that the kids have been working on all week long, and so support local theater and the up-and-coming kids who want to show off and act. Summer Lego Club at Missoula Public Library every Friday at 4 p.m. with their different hours than their springtime and fall and winter hours. Live music with the Pack Strings at 10 Spoon Winery, playing some bluegrass music starting at 6 p.m. Tango Dance Party at Montana Moonlight Studios at 6 p.m. You got NFB Espresso and Flowers acoustic music hosting live music lawn featuring Adriana and Maddie at River. This is at 180 River Street in Superior, Montana. Andy Frasco and the Ewan at the Union Club playing some rock music at 7 p.m. You got Summer Concert Series featuring Maria Zepeda at Sacred Alley at 7 p.m. Karaoke at Jack Saloon at 7. Longstaff House plays bluegrass music featuring Squirrels CD release party at 7 p.m. Wolf and the Moon is going to be Cranky Sam Public House. We got Ventrilo Velocidum and the New Nightmare at the Dark Horse playing some rock music. We got Andrew Staver at the Old Post at 8 p.m. Idaho Ranch Hands will be playing some music at Union Club. And Cahoots will be playing their first of 2 shows tonight at 9:30 p.m. at Sunrise Saloon. Saturday markets and such are happening from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. if you're interested in getting the fresh produce and all sorts of stuff. Huckleberries should be coming out pretty soon. They also have baked goods, meats, and other food trucks around that time pretty much every single Saturday well until October, all happening from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Landscape Photography Workshop, Leyland Buck Photography. It's starting at 8 a.m. This is a workshop for people who are interested in photography. Line dancing at Missoula Senior Center on Saturdays at 10 a.m. MCAT's media tour and training every Saturday at 10 a.m. Anybody who wants to drop in and do that. And also Carlos's One Night Stand Vintage pop-up sale continues on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4. Summer Learning Program, Wildlife Habitat and the Balcony. Missoula Public Library, learn how to transform your space into a National Wildlife Federation certified habitat and practice your skills by planting a pollinator gardener in the library's second floor balcony. Museum tour at 11 a.m. on Saturday. If you're interested in going to the Missoula Art Museum, they have a marked tour at 11 a.m. Mid-century furniture event at Missoula Used Furniture. This is starting at 11 a.m. on Saturday. This is a monthly mid-century furniture sale, Saturday and Sunday, 28th and 29th from 11 to 3, located next to the back entrance of Tamarack Brewing and across the street from Carousel in downtown Missoula. This is going to be happening for Saturday and Sunday for the Mid-Century Furniture event. MCAT Saturday drop-ins every Saturday at 1 p.m. Kids can do stop animation, learn the early sides of production and media editing. Roller Derby doubleheader, so if you're interested in the Hellgate Roller Girls. Himbos versus Bimbos. Then juniors mixes, the Unicorns versus Sperry Sprites is going to be bouting and hitting each other with hip checks starting at 3 p.m. at the Missoula Fairgrounds. Dungeons and Dragons Guilds for Teens. This is through the Missoula Public Library's online services starting at 3 p.m. You can get the link at missoulaevents.net. Why we went west. The Desert Family at Free Cycles is going to be performing there at 6:30 p.m. They also have a Speakeasy Swing Night at the Jive, featuring at Monks at 7 p.m. on Saturday night. Blue Collar Band at the Jack Saloon at 7 p.m. Karaoke at West Side Lanes. Midside Charlie at Union Club. Latin International Music and Dance at Eagles Lodge at 9 p.m. DJ Chris Moon every Saturday at 10 p.m. at the Badlander. Cahoots Round 2 is going to be at the Sunrise Saloon to wrap up your Saturday night. And as Sunday, volunteering at Fort Missoula Native Plant Garden at 9 a.m. well until mid-July. Summer 1 Intermediate Pottery. This is at the Clay Studio Missoula. Then also Golden Leaf Studios at the Southgate Mall is to sculpt your own clay creation at 2 p.m. The Back Porch Party at the Jack Saloon is playing some music at 2 p.m. Missoula Art Museum is hosting Laura Palooza, celebrating 35 years of being the executive director. She's retiring and inviting the whole community to help us celebrate. They'll be closing down Pine Street for the event evening filled with art, music, and dance in honor of Laura's exemplary impact on Missoula Art Museum and Missoula's creative community. You got the very funny open mic comedy at VFW at 8 p.m. on Sunday, and then karaoke at the Sunrise Saloon to wrap up your Sunday. And then as we go into further some of the stuff as well, we got some sour news, some sad news coming out of Montana as Pat Williams, one of the last Democratic elected House Representatives of Montana, has died at 87. After wrapping up 9 terms in 1997, Pat advocated for the state Dems and government to provide the 1993 Family and Medical Leave Act that assured workers up to 12 weeks of unpaid job-protected absence from work for the birth of their child. Caring for sick spouse or adopting a child in general. 8 previous attempts under the presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush failed. His slow period began in the early 90s when manufacturing jobs and automation began replacing and removing many jobs that had made Montana basically what it is in the beginning, but as the nation changed, many of the consequences of inaction in our state has resulted in many property taxes taking the brunt of the state revenue as opposed to industry. The former educator turned politician used his degree to help increase voter registration from tribes across Montana and help foster bank loans for farmers when property values in Montana were too low for collateral. He was also around so long to see the population shrink to a point of losing a congressional seat, to which it wasn't looking good for his future because even with some of the extra folks here in Montana, there was a lot more leaning towards Republican towards the end of his time, because after he left office, there hasn't been a Democrat since '96 in the state of Montana who represented the House of Representatives. All have gone to Denny Rehberg, Steve Daines, and now we have the 2 representatives as of right now, which are both Republican. Let's see. And, as we're talking about Republicans as well, the New York mayor race has gotten so crazy that basically everyone in the nation has been watching it. This is definitely a precursor, pre-liar to how the Dems will move forward with their other candidates. Tuesday showed that the people of New York chose Mamdani, despite a lot of reports of him being a Democratic Socialist being a bad thing. This also tore through the establishment Dems, as they have been all but silenced, besides the weird endorsement by former President Bill Clinton for Cuomo before primary elections. Whether this is a fluke or the tides are changing for the Dems, the main point Mamdani wanted to make was first and foremost a grassroots efforts by many of his people to help bolster his profile, and having AOC as a supporter after the debate with the other candidates. He stayed on the message and avoided many pitfalls in the media that put him in the corner when he was asked about Israel and whether or not he'd actually go to Israel, and him staying on message to represent Missoula, to represent New York, from Jews to Muslims to the majority of hardworking New Yorkers to improve their lives through many radical ideas from free transit and childcare, to name a few, along with rental freezes. Affordable housing and Bozeman have been like oil and water, never seem to mix, but when recent efforts by tenants unions-backed mayor has finally bore fruit in efforts to flip housing market. Montana Free Press mentioned the story Tuesday night that not long ago, tenants in Bozeman leveraging cheaper rent would have been unheard of, unthinkable, even by real estate experts. Largely agree that the glut of new built apartments in the city is driving down rental prices across the board, especially with the new construction. 3,042 rentals have been built in Bozeman since 2021, with more than 1,000 of those units completed in 2024. Hundreds more, especially near Montana State campuses, are currently under construction, and according to Rose, more than 4,000 rental units are still in the planning pipeline. So mind you, Bozeman faces challenges. They always come together to build something more than Missoula could, and in many cases, from the Can the Cats, which is MSU always dunking on food raised by their food bank nearly every year since it began. Vacancy is at 12%, but potentially 20% when those rental apartments begin to accept tenants. So a one-bedroom apartment in Bozeman at just over $1,900 per month, which is largely the same as last year. However, a two-bedroom apartment has actually decreased in price, averaging at about $1,700 a month. So for the first time in a long time, Bozeman, you can get a rental for less than $1,000 a month as long as you have a roommate. Mayor Terry Cunningham highlighted the newly constructed Bearmount Apartments, an income-restricted development just off of Tresh Lane, available for those making under 60% of area median income, or about $50,000 a year. Apartments at the Bearmount State start as low as $1,271 for a one-bedroom. However, things shake out. People of Bozeman spend half their paycheck on rentals currently, and as we talk about communities, back to Missoula, we have Old Post Hospital trying to get permission from a historic preservation committee to actively denied many requests for construction and demolition. Nearly 2 years after its first appeal, the owners of the Old Post Hospital at Fort Missoula believe the Historic Preservation Commission again acted on bias and erred in this decision. So the city of Missoula will act as the judiciary in this request in mid-July, on July 14th, where it considers this matter further. So those are the news items. There's a lot of things that are happening in and around the city of Missoula and beyond. Just a lot of things happening. And honestly, I think I breezed through my show pretty quickly, and I still have a good amount of time left in the hour. I'm not going to spend too much time on this and just kind of reflect, as we're getting into the summer months. We got our summer camps coming up. All our summer camps are full. We have one spot available in documentary camp. At this point, it doesn't seem like there's going to be too many more kids signed up for our camps. Not to mention, we also have our other shows that we're going to try to be promoting. MCAT Radio, if you're interested, we try to do that on Mondays at noon on 101.5. If you're interested in watching that, that is my more free show where I don't have too many restrictions on events, news, and also city council report. Of course, it's fun just to kind of hang out and chat with a coworker, Neil, who was also my co-host on that show as well. So you guys can check it out. We just talk about everything kind of Missoula. We dive into Reddit, we drive into trends and just talk about some of the pulp culture things happening. So you can check out MCAT Radio as it airs on the radio every Monday at noon live. And then, of course, you can watch the replay where we have a video component that runs every Monday at 5:30 at 11 p.m. and Tuesdays at 5:30 p.m. So again, our replays for television is 11 p.m. every Monday night and 5:30 p.m. Every Tuesday evening. So without any ado, that's basically most of my announcements that are coming to mind, and I want to thank you guys for joining me. And as always, you can find out more information by going to mcat.org, where you too can sign up for many classes, many things to get involved with doing shows very much like this, or something completely different. We'll help you with the technical side of things, but you're all alone on your creative aspect of things, because we want to be a First Amendment station, and we want to help people cultivate their media the best we can. So without further ado, for Wake Up Missoula, I'm Scott Ramp. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend.